Yo,
Yo.
what up? What
Y'all
up?
already know. Hey, I think when you hear that yo, y'all already know what time it is. It's two guys from Corporate Coke and
Hey,
Snack.
bro, we've evolved so much, but we still keep that yo. You feel me? Like I remember when we first started and we was talking about a lot of nutty stuff. We was talking
Right.
about a lot of crazy stuff.
You know,
If
it's
you go
funny
back
that
and you listen to like the first episode,
it's funny because somebody actually mentioned to me this past week, they was like, yo, I like y'all show. I just kind of started listening the last month or two, but I'm gonna go back, start from the first one. And I said straight up, you're gonna see the evolution in the show. You're gonna see that.
hey, if Hey, look, I apologize in advance because if you start from episode one, you will see the evolution as far as the taste of woman that I've had. So I just want to apologize because I said some crazy things from like episode one to like episode 50. And then you saw me mature a little bit from 50 to 100. And now, hey, I just thank God for bringing me to where I'm at today.
That's a fact. That's a fact, man. Welcome everyone once again to episode 198 of Corporate Coke and Smack. We do have a special guest in the building tonight. He's hailing from Texas. But we're gonna bring him on in a few minutes as always. We like to intro the show and just give a little recap of our week. So I'll go ahead and start myself with Josh. It was a pretty good week. Actually, Toby and I we were at a mutual friend's birthday party this past weekend.
Mm-hmm. Happy birthday,
Yo,
Trey.
kids, like energy levels, crazy. So we were at a one of those was it a trampoline park? Okay, a trampoline adventure park thing. And I mean, you should have seen it. Like
Uh-huh.
kids walked in.
This is your first time being there, right?
Yeah, it was the first time trampoline, but yo, crazy workout. Crazy workout. I highly recommend if you're trying to break a sweat, go in there, but make sure you wear athletic gear. And I mean like some sweats, like some shorts. You know what I'm saying? Don't go in there with jeans on. You know what I'm saying? But that was a cool experience. Outside of that, the markets have been pretty good. Yo, Tesla's going crazy right now. Tesla, I know we talked about it last episode where they had inked the deal. Hertz inked the deal to buy 300 Model 3s. And then there's some whispers that some of the other rental car companies are going to follow up. So, but yo, Tesla's been going crazy this week. Overall, the market's been doing good too. Historically, November is a bull month. So, if they be November 1st, we'll see how that turns out.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, man, everything's going good. Hope everyone had a safe Halloween weekend. You know,
Hey, and I gotta say, I don't want to get too cocky. All right. We always start off the show thanking God. And I feel like we had good weekends and we just didn't do the same thing that we always do. So I want to thank the man upstairs. I want to thank God for bringing us here today. I mean, we could be in so many different situations right now. I mean,
yeah.
up, down, wherever you are, but you're still here with us, still got good health. So thank God for that. And I also want to remind people, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, that's CC Smack Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you do that. We're putting videos up so you can see our lovely faces, see the expressions as we tell you these jokes, and as we talk about some serious stuff.
And also go on Apple Podcast app and make sure you drop a 5-star rating so we can continue to deliver great content to our listeners week in and week out.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell the people about my weekend, but I'm gonna tell the truth. All right. So it was my man Josh's first time at a trampoline park. You feel me? And I gotta let the people know you couldn't get the trampoline dunk down. My man kept on trying. You had like 20 tries. He looked like you remember the Nate Robinson dunk contest where he kept trying to get the dunk and he couldn't get it. And he finally got you never got it, bro. And I just want to let people know like Josh got something to work on. All right. And then we did take it to the shooting contest, right? So my guy Josh is a lefty. And I will say he's got a jump shot. He's got a jump shot, but he challenged me, right? And there were some onlookers. I'm not gonna say who. So he was feeling kind of good, right? So we started betting some money. He got up. He got the early lead on me, but I caught up. Then I took the early lead on him. And when he caught up, he begged me, say, "Yo, please, let's stop right here." Yo.
I didn't beg.
He said, "Let's stop right here." I had got hot.
The moral was my perseverance because I went up early. I didn't get cocky, but you battle back, and then I battle back. So we both warriors.
Okay, nice. But no, we had a good time, man. Shout out to Mark Baylor. His son is actually my godson, and bro, these kids are growing, man. These kids are growing. His son is 4 years old, and he's a big 4-year-old. Like you see him with his peers, and you look like, yo, he looks like he's 6'7". Yeah, he towers over him, bro. So yeah, shout out to Mark Baylor. Had a great time. What else is going on with me? I got the Tough Mudder coming up, right? It's a 10-mile obstacle course. Shout out to the Young Savages. We're going to take that thing this weekend on Sunday. I'm not as prepared as I want to be, but I just feel like we're going to be a team. We're going to help each other out. So I'm not really worried about it. Shout out to all the South African women that think I'm going to respond to them. So I went to South Africa a couple weeks or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
about 3 weeks ago, and I was getting some, I don't think people understand. Like, once I left South Africa, I left everything there. All right. So I had some people texting me like, hey, and I'm like, bro, I'm not coming back. Like, it's not happening. So shout out to the South African women, lovely people, but I'm not texting back. And I did promote the podcast out there. So hopefully they're listening to this.
Word.
But
back to the world.
That's my weekend. In terms of the markets, but I've been doing good in the markets, man. I've been doing good. What's been doing good for me?
Somebody asked about the Smack portfolio too. We might bring that back. We should bring it back.
We should bring it back. Everything is still invested though.
December, we're gonna have a new stock pick for December.
Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do is next podcast we can give an update on everything that we have going, because we haven't sold out of anything. Yeah. We still have updated numbers for you. So yeah, tune in next episode. Yeah. But I'm rushing through this because we got a special guest. I know we say special guests all the time, and all of our guests are special, but this is a really special guest. And the reason why I say he's a special guest, he reminds me, like, he's a young cat. He's a younger cat. He reminds me of Joseph in the Bible, right? Like when Joseph told his older brothers, like, yo, I'm gonna rule over you. And they was like, oh, what you talking about? So he's a younger cat. He's got a lot going on for him. And I want to take the time out to introduce him. His name is Mr. Marlon Walls. He's a retired engineer, right? Had a cushy job, left that role because he wanted to do his own thing. He started off in real estate. So he's a real estate investor, but he's also a rental car fleet owner. I said fleet, right? That's plural. So it's not just one, not just two. He has quite a few rental cars. And I mean, I think to put it simply, he's a financial educator, right? I mean, he does a lot of content creation. When I was looking through his social media, a lot of content creation that just aims to help educate people. And it's mad funny, but it's a lot of truth that's hitting you, right? So I think he definitely puts the medicine, he puts the medicine in the candy. And he also aims to educate you through his podcast that he has with the co-host. So without no further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our special guest for the day, Mr. Marlon Walls.
Man, I appreciate y'all for having me on today. So I love that intro because I was just thinking back to when you said, talking about my like me posting on Instagram and stuff. All the reels that I'll be putting out, I actually had made up a whole name for them. I call them sad truths. So I call it that because like when you first look at it, you're gonna start laughing, but then you're gonna be like, man, that's really how I be, man. Like that's you know what, I relate to that. Like that, I've been through that before, and that was the goal of it. Like you want to be able to find a balance between education and entertainment, because in this day and age, there's so much information out there. And so like people are going to start getting information overload, but how do you separate yourself is by adding a little bit of entertainment along with it. So you can have an entertaining message, but that will still get your point across. So that's kind of where that came about. That's
kind of how we came up with this podcast, actually, Corporate Coke and Smack, because like, you know, the corporate side, or like you said, it's kind of education. Then the Coke and Smack side is kind of like your informal, you know, laughs. Like you said, just the hard truths in life that, you know, some people find it hard to stomach sometimes, but we like to, you know, soften up a little bit, but we still gonna let you know what it is though. So we can definitely attest to, you know, those hard truths, definitely, because delivery is everything. I know about that.
Yeah.
And depending on how you deliver it, you know, you connect with certain, you know, audiences.
So hey, if if you want to laugh and cry at the same time, because he's gonna make you laugh, but you got to deal with the reality, right? Because he's talking about some real truths here. And honestly, when I think about just Black people as a whole, we have to get comfortable with seeing the truth, right? Because it's so easy to live a false narrative, whether it's on social media, you want to portray yourself as this way, or like even in real life, you have credit cards, you have so many different things that you could rent, so many ways that you could portray yourself as somebody else. But if you're comfortable with the truth, I think you're gonna have a better chance of actually being successful in whatever you're trying to get at.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. My dad actually talks about that all the time. He says, y'all generation, y'all just different. Like y'all don't mind telling the truth to people. Because most generations before us, they would like sugarcoat the truth. They would like avoid it just so that you can make somebody feel better. But with this generation right now, what we're seeing is that you have to be able to face your reality, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you're not where you want to be. And once you figure that out, that's when you start taking the right actions to get where you do want to be. So that's kind of, I think that's where that shift is coming with the culture. That's why you see more of us get on podcasts like this, being able to share our knowledge with other people.
Yeah, and I just want people to know this is a very, how do I put it, well-versed, smart individual. When he actually approached us and talked about collaborating, he gave us a one-pager, right? Which basically had all his background information. This was the first time someone's ever done this on Cobra Coke and Smack.
Yeah, he gave us a resume. He gave us.
That's what I was thinking of it as too.
He gave us a resume.
No, and it was dope, man. I really appreciate that. I did some more research into your story. So I just want to start off at the origin. So you're from Michigan.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. But you are now in Texas.
Yep.
So talk about that. Growing up in Michigan, how did you then figure out you want to move out of your home state to Texas?
Definitely. Okay. So it wasn't much of my input because my parents actually moved us to Texas when I was in 5th grade. So my dad, he worked for a company that was relocating people that were in the company, and they had different options that they could choose from. They had like Florida, they had California, they had Texas, I think somewhere in the Midwest. And both my parents were like looking around and they were just trying to figure out where would be the best place to raise their children. Because at the time it was myself, then I had one sister. And they were trying to figure out where could they move us to, because what they knew from living in Detroit was that the opportunities that were there were not the same as they were elsewhere. And they knew that if they could raise us in a better environment that they were raised in, we may have new opportunities, we may meet new people, we'll be able to get just a whole new experience of life growing up. And so I think that was hands down the best decision that was made on my behalf in my life ever, because that's everything else.
Isn't Detroit like a very industrial city, correct?
Yeah, so yep, that's
very
exactly
blue collar.
correct.
You know, like I know Ford, General Motors is up there. It's a lot of auto manufacturing going on.
Yep, no doubt. So yeah, all those industries are up there, but at the same time, the area that we were growing up in, it wasn't the best environment for like a kid to. So my dad says his famous phrase: "A kid can't be a kid in that environment. You get to learn how to grow up pretty quickly." Like for him, he didn't have his dad growing up. He tells the stories all the time about how he had to move like 3 times within a month because lights weren't coming on, and just it was an overall bad situation that they were growing up in. And what they vowed was that they would have the same thing happen for their kids. And so they, like I said, when I was only 10 years old, and they saw the opportunity within his job to say that you can make a change like within the country, you'll still be hired elsewhere, but we're relocating people. And so once that relocation happened, I would say everything in life changed, because now I started on a brand new trajectory that I wouldn't have been on had I stayed back in Detroit.
You were pretty young at that time, right? You said you were 10. Do you remember the feelings that you had? I know sometimes kids don't really like to move because they feel like they're going to leave their friends with it. Do you remember anything about the feelings you had at that time?
I remember it very strongly, actually. So I remember when my parents first gave me the news and I was devastated. I remember I broke down crying when I went to school and I told them all that I would be moving away. This is heartbreaking for me. Like I've been growing up with these same people since kindergarten. I've seen them all, well, pre-kindergarten at that. I've seen them for like 7, 8 years out of my life. And you don't want to leave that entire feeling. You don't want to leave that community of people. They actually threw a party for me too, like a going away party. My whole class, they end up saying like, "We'll miss you, Marlon." Like I still have the posters that they made for me to this day, and it's been
nice.
15 years.
That's awesome.
But speaking of that, I know you didn't necessarily move by choice, but as we look back on life, I know Toby and I have done this. Moving away from your hometown can definitely change your perspective on the world. Because one, it gets you out of your comfort zone, and then for two, it forces you to network with new people, and it also exposes you to new opportunities as well. And Toby and I being from Baltimore, we know hands full of people. We're gonna need more than two hands that have not left Baltimore. They went elementary, middle school, high school, probably went to community college, if that, but they're still in Baltimore. And you may take the occasional trip to like DC or Atlanta or one of the turn up spots. But I always tell people like, yo, even if you just move away for a year, like just move away somewhere else where, and I mean, move from Baltimore, you can move away from the violence as well. So like move away from your city and really see, what, even as in the US, what the world has to offer. Because, you go somewhere else and you can run across somebody like you, Marlon, where you're not even from where you live at. And, you can connect with like-minded people like that. But the thing where in a lot of inner cities nowadays is that the mentality that these people have keeps them like stuck in that environment. And it's really not good for them because, naturally humans like, comfortability, but to move out of you, to make that decision to move out, voluntarily shows a lot about the person. And more times than not, when you ask people about this, they'll tell you moving away opened their eyes up to things they never saw before, new cultures they never experienced, all types of things, man. So like I said, I just want to touch on that because I know you move in a different circumstance, but
yeah, I was gonna say he was 10, but he moved. And they was gonna haul his ass out of there. No, but everything you said is correct though.
Yeah, and just to echo everything, I am one of the biggest advocates for moving away from your hometown, because even pushing my story forward, I haven't been here in Houston ever since I was in 5th grade. I actually moved around. I've lived in total 4 states now. So after I graduated college, that was in 2017. In 2018, like January 2018, I moved up to Maryland and I got my first full-time work experience there. I lived there for 6 months. And then after that, I ended up moving over to Indiana. Both of these moves, it was just myself. I had nobody else that I knew necessarily going to those new areas. I moved to Indiana because I did a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So I did 2 years in Indiana, 6 months in Maryland, and then I came back to Houston afterwards. But that time, that 2.5 years, that was probably one of the best years of my life as far as personal development, because I was able to like find myself. I was able to connect with new people. I was able to see different cultures. I was able to just really understand more of who I was and who I wanted to be. So that's why I'm such a big advocate for it, because you have to learn how to grow up. I know I didn't cook for myself on a regular basis until I moved to Maryland. This is after college.
So, and I'm the type of cook where I don't use measuring cups. So I'm freehanding stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, how the bartenders pour it into the shot cup and pour it in. I'm the one that's just going to hold the bottle up. And once it look right, I'm going to just, pull that bottle back up. So, no, I definitely can feel that.
I could vouch for Josh cooking too. Every time I come over there, I'm like, yo, what you got, yo? He actually gets annoyed with me because every time I come over there, I come expecting a meal. So, yeah, I appreciate you, my guy.
Word.
For sure.
But, yo, let's I want to go. I want to touch on the Turo and the rental car fleet. So I'm actually a Turo owner as well.
Okay.
I have a few cars as well on the platform. So how as far as your operation, are you based out in one city? Are you kind of spread out?
So yeah, our full operation is based in Houston. So really, just south of Houston is a city called Pearland. That's where
Pearland. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice,
So
nice.
we actually just added another car to our fleet this past week, but it was through a joint venture. So that's when somebody comes along and says, well, sees what I've been doing within the business, and they say that they want to partner together. And so what they do is they provide the car, like whether they finance or whether they own it outright, they can give that to us, and we can operate the car for them within our company. And we'll pay them out a flat rate or a percentage just based on the car that they provide. So now it's a partnership to where they can make passive income. They also can learn about the business, and then we just add the car to our fleet so we can make money with it too.
So it's almost like
Okay.
essentially like a management position, like you're like property management for cars.
Yeah, essentially. So
Yeah.
now they can get rid of their car note and give it to us and give the car to us. So now we can make money with it. It pays for itself. They get they cash flow per month. So now they turn their liability into an asset, because instead of them having to pay for it, it now pays them.
Yep.
Nice. So I'm sure you went through different stages in terms of rental cars, right? So I'm sure there was a point where you started. Then there was a point where you felt I can scale this so you can do more. And then there was a point where you felt I can transform this to kind of what Josh was saying, like a property management for cars. Walk me through those stages. The initial stage, the stage where you said, hey, I can scale this, and then the stage where you said, I can transform this.
No, that's really good right there. Great question. So the initial stage started back last year. So this is July of 2020, because like I said, I spent 2 years at Indiana doing getting my master's degree. During that time, we were me and my podcast co-host, we had been running a podcast since May of 2019. And so we had started interviewing different guests who had talked about the rental car industry. And well, we interviewed guests that talked about everything, like a whole bunch of different businesses. And so me hearing all those different podcast guests come on and talk about how they've been able to build 5, 6, 7-figure businesses off of just like what they've learned, and just now they're implementing it. I'm thinking the whole time, as soon as I finish writing this thesis, as soon as I finish doing all this homework, as soon as I graduate, I'm starting something. I'm actually starting a lot of stuff. As soon as I'm done, I cannot wait to graduate so I can go get on with the rest of my life. And so from the time we were interviewing everybody all the way up until I graduated, I was just anxious. So by the time July 2020 came around, that's when I graduated. I moved back to Houston, and I pretty much said, I'm starting some type of business. And the first one I thought of was rental cars, because I feel like the most feasible. I told my dad about it too, because he had been hearing me had these conversations with my podcast co-host about like different businesses that we wanted to start up. We had talked about vending machines. We talked about getting into rental cars. We had talked about a whole bunch of stuff, to be honest. And so but I told him I was going to go buy a car one day. I think it was like August 12th of 2020. And that same day, he was like, I'm going with you, because I wanted to go on this journey with you. So we got into that. Wow. We got into the business together just like that, because he was somebody who always would say, yeah, man, I was thinking about starting this business. I was just thinking about doing that. I thought about that. I thought, but never took action. And so him seeing me about to take action and say, no, I'm jumping in, because this is his moment to take action as well. So that's where the start was. Keep in mind though, all of the rest of 2020, we had that same one car, because of the fact that I was trying to get into, like I told you, I was trying to get in everything. I was just in entrepreneurial seizure mode, where I needed to get into everything that I saw. By night, I was studying like tow trucking. I was studying pest control businesses. I was trying to create an app. I was trying to do stock options. We bought a mobile home. We owned a rental property, like a duplex in Houston. Too much stuff. Way too much stuff.
Bring yourself in.
Yeah, so instead of being able to scale the rental car business, which was actually working, we never noticed that it was working, because I was focused on way too much other stuff. And my dad he was just like doing the day-to-day task of like getting the car washed and stuff like that. And so it didn't happen until December of 2020. I joined this thing called the Morning Meetup. The Morning Meetup is a group of entrepreneurs, it's like 500 entrepreneurs now. They get on a call every day. It's hosted by the guy named David Shans. And during one of his lectures, he had taught about the concept of scaling horizontally versus scaling vertically. Scaling horizontally was what most entrepreneurs do. Everybody always wants to, because most entrepreneurs do this because they've never experienced anything before. They've never experienced anything such as making money without having to clock into a 9 to 5. So now they see pest control as an opportunity. They see trucking as an opportunity. They see rental cars. They see vending machines. They see all these things as different opportunities. When in reality, most of those are distractions.
Thanks.
Only the one that you see that you can see yourself in and scaling, that's where the opportunities lie. Everything else is a distraction. So that's when you start scaling vertically, is when you lock in on one business until you find that successful. And then once you have systems in place in that one business, that's when you can start branching off into other things. Once you have systems in place, people in place to run your business with or without you there. So in January of 2021, which is the beginning of this year, that's when I told my dad, we need to set a goal to get 10 cars this year. I'm shutting down other businesses and I'm about to focus in on rental cars.
Yep.
And so January of 2021, we got our second car. In February, we got our third. April, we got 2 more. In May, we end up getting another one. In June, we got 2 more. So we end up having, I think, 7 or 8 cars by midway through the year. And then we end up getting our last couple in July. And then we started to restructure because now we saw, oh, shoot, we got some 10 cars. We end up buying a total of 11 within that span of like 7 months, like between January and July. And then we sold off a couple. So we had a total of 10. And I was like, okay, now I see where this can really go, because it's very easy to acquire them. But what's even better is that now I'm starting to gain recognition on social media. I'm starting to gain recognition inside the Morning Meetup. And now that recognition is going to turn into people that want to do business with us.
Yeah.
And that's where I said, okay, it's not going to just be about me and my dad no more. It's going to be about other people. So now I started getting people that's reaching out to me saying, hey, can we partner together? I see what you're doing. I'm trying to be a part of that. And so that's when people they started like jumping in my DMs saying, is there any way we can set up a joint venture or something? I heard you talk about it before, I'm interested. And so that's where we started talking to our first guy. He said he was interested in joint venturing. And I said, that's a great strategy, I think, for us moving forward, because we know how to run the business. We've been doing it for a year. We've seen a lot of different things that happen within the business, and we know how to navigate through them now since we've systematized our processes. And so now we're able to bring in multiple cars. We'll start to incorporate multiple people that work with us, work for us, to help us out as we continue to expand our fleet. And that's where we see it going now. So that's when we started saying, this is where it's going to start scaling.
Wow. Hey, I want y'all to rewind that back and listen to it again, simply because it's a lot that goes into, it's a lot that went into that, right? I saw the networking piece. You mentioned the Morning Meetup, where you're getting insight, so you're learning a lot. I also saw you talk about you talk about us, right? You and your dad. That's another piece. And I also saw the leadership aspect of it, right? You sat here and you said, I told my dad I'm shutting down all these other businesses and we're about to go here. Shout out to your dad, because there are a lot of parents who they put doubt in their children, So the kids will say, hey, I want to do this. It's like, why you want to do that?
Why don't you just go get a job?
No, yeah. Why don't you go get a job?
And I'm pretty sure you can attest to this, Marlon, that your dad, of course, took a chance, but maybe other people in your family are more risk averse. And I think part of that is simply because they did not have all of these investment options available to them, 20, 30 years ago. Like I said, now you can roll over and you can get a rental car company. You can roll over and get you a vending machine route. You know what I'm saying? Just to name a couple, but these weren't available to them back then. All they knew was kind of, work 25, 30 years, you get a pension. As we know, pensions aren't around anymore. Or build that 401k. As we know now, that's the cost of living with the inflation, that's just not going to cut it. So I think that is not that I think, I know that's what leads people like us and our generation to really aspire to seek other routes to, whatever your personal definition of success is, because the traditional method isn't going to work. I mean, even though I don't want to get too far off track, but, just look at cryptocurrencies. I mean, cryptocurrencies isn't even possible without computers. And we know computers started to pop, Y2K, when they thought the joint was going to crash the internet. So it's great to see, that your dad was on board. But I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners, because I talk to people all the time, and they're like, yeah, my mom or my dad, they don't want to really touch the investment, and part of it is due to the age, but also a lot of it, I believe, is due to just the risk aversion, and not wanting to, like we talked about, being uncomfortable, not wanting to learn something new, so.
So I had a couple of things with that, because it's not necessarily, it's not like this is the first time he had heard me mention of anything entrepreneurial or anything investment specific. Understand that we had started this journey, as far as like the journey to financial freedom. That journey started back in January of 2018. And so my dad was, so back in January 2018, I was up in Maryland, and I was starting to educate myself on real estate. And throughout that education, we would always have conversation every now and again about like what I was doing. So he would call every now and again, say, "Hey, just checking in on you," and I tell him about what I'm studying. And that's, at that time, he wasn't as interested. He was just there, like just listening in. But until I bought my first property, that I lived in personally myself. So it was a house hack where I lived in one bedroom and rented out 3 other bedrooms. It was a 4-bedroom house. I lived in one bedroom, rent out the other ones, and then I was able to live mortgage free. And the tenants were paying my rent. Well, were paying rent to help me pay my mortgage. And so he saw that, and that's like, oh, what he's doing, he's onto something right now. So now he's starting to get loosened up a little bit. We actually ended up doing a partnership deal together, and I think it was August or September of 2018, after we got that first property. He tells the story to this day. He said that, man, he was shaking in his boots, scared out of his mind. This is nothing but a single family house that was probably needed $10,000 worth of rehab. If you know real estate, when I say 10, that was like a legit $10,000 rehab, and most of the money went into the pool that just needed to be like replastered and everything. Like I would say 8,000 of the 10,000 went to that. It was a very, very basic cosmetic flip. He said I was nervous out of my mind. But after that experience and seeing that this is possible, that's when he started to loosen up a lot more, because now he says, oh, this can work. And now we just need to be able to just try stuff, because now he starts seeing the things I'm listening to, the podcasts I'm listening to, the books that I'm reading. And then over that time, well, we're also doing our own podcast too, like me and my podcast co-host. We've been doing that podcast for a year or two before I even get back to Houston to say I'm about to get the rental car. So all that build up leading up into that point of me saying I'm gonna get a car, it's a no-brainer for him now. Mm-hmm. He's seen what we've been talking, he's seen the conversations we've had, he's seen the mindset shift that I've been going through. And so by the time I finally present this opportunity, he's ready. If I said the same thing back in January of 2018, he'd be like, nah, man, I'm good. That might have been the approach back then, as opposed to now, where it's like, man, it's a no-brainer. Whatever you say, I'm down, at least try it, because I know I just have the history now. So if anybody is looking to get their parents on board, you have to be the example. Go do something for yourself, get some results, show them why it works, show them how it works, and then present it after the fact. Don't try to bring somebody on from the very beginning, because they only can go based off of what they already know. What they already know is nothing in relation to starting your own business, pursuing entrepreneurship. They know safety and security, get a 9-to-5, retire on government benefits, not necessarily what you're telling them right now. So you have to show them that this works before they'll buy in.
Yeah,
wow.
results matter.
You broke that down.
Yeah,
I like that you broke that down, because some people might hear that and think there's a sense of entitlement, like, oh, this is my dad, and he just, just because I'm the son. Nah, I didn't work like that. You had to put in your sweat equity as well. And I look at that as an awesome proof of concept, right? Like if you could convince your dad, who typically parents are more so like, I don't know. If you can convince your dad, who else can you convince? You feel me? Like, that's how I look at it. And another reason why I told people to go back and listen to what you said is there was a lot of stuff that you mentioned, especially when you said you shut down your businesses. Most people, when they start businesses, it's their baby, right? It's like, oh man, I started this when I was this. I remember I was in my room alone, and it can't, like, they have so much emotional attachment to businesses. How was it hard for you to shut down all these other businesses? Walk us through that process.
I would say the one I was the furthest along with that I really wanted to get into was the app that I was building. So I had an app that I wanted to build out that would like go into colleges and would like try to connect college students to like the graduate organizations. I had the app all the way built out. As far as like the concept, not necessarily like the functional, but I had every page filled out and ready to go. And once I really realized that it was more important to dial back in and focus on one thing, that was probably the hardest one to let go of because I spent a lot of time investing into like that concept came to me just in the shower. Like I was just thinking, I'm like, man, what can I do to build another stream of income? And that just came to me all of a sudden. And I really want to like see that one all the way through. But what I had to tell myself is that there is no lack of opportunities in the world. There will always be new opportunities that come up. And if you can come up with one way to solve a problem, people will never run out of problems. That's really the base of it all. There will always be a new problem to solve. And even if you don't capitalize on this one right now, there will still be a new one in the future that you can come up and solve. So whether it's focus in on this one, right? Focus in on what you're doing right now, grow that, learn from it, build systems, learn the concept of running a team, learn the concept of being a leader, gain all of these values and these core principles, then go apply it somewhere else after you have satisfied this particular area. But stop trying to do everything all at once because everything is in its infancy stage. Right. And if everything's in its infancy, that means everything needs a lot of time. It's not going to be a lot of return on your time. So now you have a whole 10 different businesses that are all generating you $50 a month. I can't live off of that.
It's kind of like when people, start a book and they start another book and start another book. It's like now you got 5 books that you're working on finishing. You haven't finished one, but so you got 5 uncompleted books. And that's what and I haven't finished any of them. And that's what that always reminds me of. I mean, it's great that you touched on the part that L word, leader, because being a leader is something that it's a skill that is very particular. And I say that because a lot of people think they're leaders, but leadership is not just through actions, just through words, it's through emotions. It really takes like serious sacrifice in very various instances. So that's one of those words where like we see on social media, and I look at it as like being overused because true leadership is like really putting yourself out there for the sake of the team. It's like the most sense of unselfishness that you can show. But also people have to remember that, like Marlon said, when you're coming up, when you're building, your own brand up, or you're building your own systems up, at those times, you do have to be selfish, because if you don't, you're giving away your time to the distractions. So that's how I look at it when, a lot of people say, I'm a leader this. I'm like, first you gotta, you gotta become a man yourself before you can train up other kids. Ooh, it's like, it seems like we're in a world where it's kids training kids.
And I would say you mentioned something about there's always opportunity, right? And I think we have a lot of, I'm not going to say everyone, right? But most people that I have come into contact with in Baltimore, they apply that notion to the ugliest things, whether it's women, like I know guys who get turned down by a woman and they say, oh, it's more fish in the sea. I'll just, jump on another thing, right? But they'll start something and they come into some difficulties and they just quit, right? Or whether it's gambling. I know people who they're gambling on different things, whether it's at the casino, whether it's on sport, whatever it is, and these are things that are just pure luck. And they're like, oh, tomorrow's going to be my thing. Tomorrow's going to be my thing, but they'll face a roadblock with investing. They'll face a roadblock with businesses. And it's just like, oh yeah, I tried that before. Oh yeah, it ain't work. Oh yeah, this and that. Because there are people who give up way too early on things, So I just wanted to chime in on that when you said there's always opportunity. I think we have to believe in ourselves more. We believe in so many other people, and we have so many good ideas, but because of like the way we think, because the way we think about our own success, it just stops us before we even get started.
Yeah. So the thing, that's a lot of ways I can go with that. But when it comes to people that starting businesses, one thing I think is a very strong misconception is that you will see somebody else that's on social media that is successful in that business, and you think that implies that if you learn how to do it, you're going to gain their success within a very, very, very short amount of time, like within days or weeks. And what they're not showing you is the obstacles that they've had to face in order to get there. They may show you that, but you may overlook that because you just see where they are today. You're comparing your level 1 to their level 10. And so now you think that because you starting today means that you're going to be at level 10 with them in a couple of weeks or a month from now. And that's not how it works, especially in a case of you having to overcome those obstacles that everybody faces in business, because there's a reason that business does not trend each month by month the same way that a 9 to 5 does. A 9 to 5 pays you the same amount every single month. That's so people are used to the consistency of having the same result every month by month. Whereas a business they fluctuate up and down, up and down, up and down, because you're hitting roadblocks, you hit new challenges, you have to overcome situations, you have to solve customers' problems, you have to solve your employees' problems, your own problems, and sometimes you may be more successful than others. But if you don't know how to overcome those, that's when people are going to start quitting. I think about the podcast as a perfect example, because the average podcaster only does 6 episodes. Y'all said y'all on like 198.
Yeah.
Y'all are way shout out to y'all for that, man. So that just shows you that people usually quit once they start hitting adversity, because once the initial dopamine hit of getting started runs out, now you have to figure out what are you really doing this for? Are you doing this for longevity, or are you doing this because you thought it was going to yield you millions of dollars in a short amount of time? You have to answer that for yourself.
Man, a lot to think about there. I also wanted to ask you, what made you, because you briefly touched on when you said you had sold off a couple cars in your fleet. Mm-hmm. What made you make that decision to sell?
Okay, great question too. So there's 2 reasons why I would sell. One is based on the market conditions. It'll probably be a good time to, like, if you can see yourself making a profit on a car, that's a good time to sell the car, because understand that these are still depreciating. And in times where, like right now, where the chip shortages and things like that are boosting up the price of used cars, it would be beneficial if you already have a used car to sell one off in order to limit your losses as much as possible. And then, but why we sold ours was because, for one, we were learning about the market. We were learning about what cars do well and what cars don't do well. And this is part of an entrepreneur. You have to go through this thing called trial and error. Most people are afraid of doing that. They want whatever they try to work the first time, and that's for everything. But we were buying different cars. We ended up buying 2 Mercedes. What we learned about those in our particular area is that they don't rent out as frequently as our other cars were doing. Like our other cars, we had like Nissan Sentras, Honda Accords.
Yeah, like compact size.
Yeah, like economy cars.
Yeah,
those rent out every single day. I'm talking about, like, on average, they may be going 25 days out the month, and so that's kind of what we were used to. Then we got 2 Mercedes back to back, and we realized that those typically rented out on weekends for us. It could be based on our area, but we got hit with a 60,000 mile maintenance expense on one of them, and after seeing how much that cost to get that maintenance repaired, we took the other one to the shop, to the dealership the next day. Like, okay, so y'all, the only reason we did that is because we had to analyze each car individually. Right. So how much income are you bringing in based on how much you're costing us? And if you're costing us more than you are bringing us in, we have to cut the dead weight, because that's going to be bad for business in the long run. And because we're going to go through all these months of running this business with this car, where we could leverage our credit, or we can leverage some type of cash or some type of whatever in order to get another car that would bring us in the same amount of money with less expenses.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great point you make, especially with the rental cars, that people have to be mindful. They see everyone on social media talking about the revenue they get, but on the other side of the ledger is your expenses. So for a car like a Honda or a Nissan, where that car maintenance is going to be much less than a luxury car, like you said, a Mercedes, BMW, Audi. And also to remember, just a point about the luxury cars is that if you look at the research, and I'm not sure about your market specifically, but typically luxury car rentals are up on the weekends because people are traveling. People want to stunt, for the gram, or if not stunt, just look good, or just test out a luxury car while they're out of town in general. So that's something I found out through my research. Like I said, being a Turo owner, is that the luxury cars, they do much better, on the weekend, like you said, Marlon.
Weekend warriors, man. That's what
Yeah,
we call them.
weekend warriors, man. But like you said, when you gotta take it to the shop, though, you're gonna have to reach down deep. Now you're gonna have to reach in all four of your pockets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what we've learned is that each market operates differently, because we had studied a lot of people that did their business in Atlanta. And Atlanta is one of those markets where everybody wants to drive the exotic cars, the super cars. And so we had learned about a model where you can buy, like, where you don't have to necessarily scale horizontally with your cars. You don't have to buy a whole bunch of them. You could buy a couple high tier cars. Like, let's say you get a Lamborghini that rents out for $1,000 a day, and you may get like a Bugatti or something like that may rent out for some crazy amount per day and stuff like that. So now with those two cars, you can pay for a whole bunch of, you can pay for your lifestyle very, very easily off of those couple of vehicles. And as long as they rent out throughout the month in the right market. It doesn't work in every market because every market doesn't demand those type of cars. Atlanta may, Miami, Florida may, Los Angeles might, but Houston, it's a little bit slower pace. So that's what we've learned from that trial and error, that we don't necessarily need to go after all the higher tiers, and especially we can stick to that niche of the economy style. We'll always have our cars rented out.
Yeah, that boy good. He's good. I'll tell you that much. He's good.
And just one last thing about rental cars is that the people who are renting the car, more times than not, like you said, you have those various markets that want the high-end cars, but most of these renters are just trying to get from A to B. A to B is efficient. Say, like you said, economy cars, I can get 35, 40 miles to the gallon. That's what they really want. And that's the sweet spot on Turo. Yep.
I think of everything as a pyramid. The base of the pyramid is where the most people are going to be at. Those economy cars is where everybody is at. That's why you have so much demand. And so if you have those, they're in high demand. And that's where you can get the most success with people renting it out.
Facts.
Nice.
So I want to kind of take a step back a little bit in the timeline. I understand you were a mechanical engineer, but you did exit from a 9 to 5.
Yes, sir.
So, and I know that's kind of a hot topic. Recently everyone's trying to. That's another word, entrepreneur. That's another term on social media everybody's running with. So, how did you go about planning your exit from your corporate job? And I got to ask because you were an engineer, and it's a pretty lucrative industry. So, if you could just tell or explain a little bit about why you left, and then also, like I said, how did you plan that exit? Or did you just roll over one day? It's like, all right, I'm just turning my 2-week notice. I'm out of here.
No, so I'm so big on having a plan, because a failure to plan is a plan to fail. And that's definitely something that people need to take heed to very strongly when you're trying to go with the crowd of pursuing entrepreneurship. Because that's what, like you said, on social media, that's like the thing to do right now. So you have to be very mindful of your personal situation before you take that leap. Because understand, it's definitely a leap. And if you're not ready for it, if you don't have expenses saved up and things start crashing, and things start popping up that were unexpected, you're gonna be turning the application very quickly to try to try to find another job. So there was a couple of strategies that I could have taken. The strategy that I took was one from a book that I read that was called Set for Life. Set for Life is a book by Scott Trench. And in that book, he talked about building what's called financial runway. And so what you do with financial runway is you're like, while you're working your 9 to 5, you build up a month-to-month reserves. So let's say if you can live off of $2,000 a month and you want to save up for 6 months of living expenses, then you would need $12,000 in order to be able to live, for pretty much buy your freedom for 6 months of time. So that's the concept that he talks about. And so during that 6-month span, what you're doing is you start to expand a pre-existing business that you already have a blueprint for how to scale it All you need now is extra time to implement the right systems, to start bringing in other partners, like bringing in partnerships, just expanding the entire vision, and like pretty much buckling down into full-time entrepreneurship. So that's what I ended up doing myself, except I had to do it even a longer span of financial runway, because I had to buy a house. I had to make sure I leveraged my credit to finance more of the cars before I moved out. So I pretty much said before I left, I had to have 5 months of reserves for myself, as well as being able to buy a house that I could live in as a house hack. So like I said before, back when I was in Indiana, I bought a 4-bedroom house where I lived in 1 bedroom and ran off the other 3 of them to eliminate my largest monthly expense, which was my mortgage. I did the same thing when I moved back here. But except I found it in August of this year. So it took me about a year, like maybe 13 months to find a house out here in Houston. It just took a whole lot longer. That's a whole story in itself. But once I found that, I had enough reserves in place to pay for the down payment, pay for renovations, enough money to stomach any capital expenditures that come up randomly, which they have. And then also I had enough money for reserves for 5 months. So I had all of that before I stepped out of the 9 to 5. And one thing I would fear is that somebody just sees that, oh, chase entrepreneurship, just quit your 9 to 5. They save up nothing but like $1,000 and they say, I'm ready to jump out there. You're not gonna last very long.
Wow, nice. And I knew you was doing well for yourself when I checked your LinkedIn, and you haven't updated your LinkedIn in a while. Because
I meant to do that too. I ain't gonna lie.
No, I knew he was doing good for himself. I'm like, yeah, he ain't updating LinkedIn, right? Because a lot of people, they update their LinkedIn, they always looking at network. I'm like, yeah, he's not worried about this. Like, he got too many other things going on right now. So I know that boy is doing good.
I really meant to update that LinkedIn page too. I might, by the time this episode comes out, just to have it. Like, I actually want to update it to what I was doing now. Like, I wouldn't not necessarily looking to network, but just to have it up there, just so at least it's up to date. That's just kind of how I am as a person. Just like to have stuff updated. But yeah, I wasn't really worried about it at all, to be honest.
Yeah. Did you ever go back and forth with the idea of leaving your job, right? Because I know you could set the date, like, okay, I'm gonna leave here, but then maybe you get a little too comfortable. Or was it just a firm deadline? Like you said, you had your cash set up for different expenses and you just stuck to it. Did you go back and forth?
So I would say no. Reason I didn't is because if I did, or if there was a time that I did, it would have been way earlier in the year. So what happened between December of 2020, when I said we were about to focus in on the business, and October 1st of 2021, which was my day that I left, I was going through a whole bunch of personal development, transformation as far as my mentality. Like, I think I would say, for one, I wouldn't be on a podcast talking to somebody else, just being as comfortable as I am, if you had asked me to do this time last year. So the person that I've become now was confident enough to know that the things that I've learned along this journey are going to propel me forward for whatever I pursue, because I know that I'm learning just general business principles that can be applied anywhere. The connections that I've built through the podcast, the people that I've connected with through the Morning Meetup, I have too many resources and too many connections to not be successful. And so my goal is to leverage every single thing. I'm pretty much fully driven now to become successful. And that's kind of, I hung my hat on that a lot. And I also hung my hat on the fact that I had prepped my way financially for this moment. And so now understand my worst case scenario. If all else fails, if I don't have any other connections, if the rental car business fails, if the house fails and everything like that, my absolute worst case scenario is going to get another job. I can go back to the same place that I was just at. They actually said, if you ever want to come back, let us know. We'd be glad to welcome you back in. My worst case scenario is everybody else's normal everyday life.
Exactly. I always tell people, that's my favorite line when I tell people about entrepreneurship is, if you're going to jump out there, like you said, jump out there with, definitely some cushion behind you. But if it doesn't work out for you, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. You go back to your job. Somebody leave on good terms, so you can come back on good terms if it's needed.
Mm-hmm. And
if it's needed.
the best thing is that I'm 25. This is the time to do it. This
And
is
take
like,
risks.
there's no bet. I don't have any kids. I don't have a wife. If I'm taking risks, this is the time to do it where it's all hanging on me and nobody else is relying on me to put bread on the table for them. I
Yeah.
can survive off of ramen noodles and piece of rolls. I've done it back in college. I can do it right now if I need to, because I know that I'm only relying on myself right now. So this is the time to take the risk for me. And I have no problem with doing that because I know that the potential upside is infinite. The worst case scenario is everybody else's normal every day.
Wow. So many young people don't understand that you should be able to take risk at that time, right? They look at that time as the time to live the best in terms of whether it's what they're putting out on social media, what they're driving, where they're going. What my man Marlon just said, I can guarantee you that whatever you put your mind to, in terms of you just saying, hey, I'm gonna delay this gratification, we'll put my arms along the road. Like my guy said, there have been things that have caused you to put out some money to put out the fire and whatnot, but you're still going. And like you also said, worst case scenario, you can always
We have to have tried Uber. I would have to have tried like partner up with one of my podcasts that I have scenario. So I know that there's options for me out there, and with all the resources that I've gained along the way, that's I would be able to pursue any one of those and still where I want trying to get to.
Nice. So I like to backtrack a little bit, right? Because I don't think
Sure.
people understand how I don't think people understand your story, right? So you actually were a football player in college, and you also majored in engineering physics.
Yeah.
So those two things, one of those things by itself is mind blowing, right? Engineering physics, I'm listening to that and I'm saying, what kind of football player was he? Like, I don't see how you can be a football player majoring in engineering physics. And guess what? I also found out you averaged a 4.0 in college. So I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, all right, where's the batteries at? Like, who is this guy who's playing on a football team? I'm sure just being a part of college athletics, there was so many things as far as parties, peer pressure, so many different things. And then you're majoring in something that most people can't even spell. And then you have a 4.0. So walk us through that. How, like, are you real? What's going on?
Are you real? So, nah, you're not the first person to say where the battery's at. You're not the first person to say robot or whatever like that, because people definitely looked at me like, that dude's just not human, because that don't even seem possible. I would give a large testament to, I don't know, I think I've always been very self-disciplined. So I can even date back to, because a lot of people don't know this, but when I was in 7th grade, my dad had told me to start doing push-ups and sit-ups every night before I went to bed, because one thing he noticed while we were in Texas is that everybody played football. I didn't play football in Detroit at all. I hate, that was actually my least favorite sport.
Is Michigan like a basketball state, right? Michigan is a basketball state.
Yep, exactly. I love basketball. I hated football. Moved to Texas, that's all everybody talks about is football. So my dad tried to put me in football in 6th grade, and I was literally on the sideline picking up grass, watching it blow in the wind. That was my game day.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not. So that was me in football. And then 7th grade, that's usually that's like your first time you can like get in football within your school. And so my dad tried to put me in. Well, my dad wanted me to join, and I didn't, because I was like, man, football ain't my thing. I tried 6th grade, it wasn't working out. So he told me in 7th grade to start doing 2 sets of 25 push-ups and sit-ups every night before I went to bed. This was my first sign that I knew that I was like very self-disciplined, very self-motivated, because every week he told me just to add one. And so between 7th grade and junior year of high school, I never missed a day. I ended up at 3 sets of 115 push-ups and sit-ups every night before I went to bed. So me, as far as on the football team, I was larger than most people by that point. I played football in 8th grade, and I played football every year after that, all the way through college. And that's because a large testament went to me doing those push-ups and sit-ups. And I was always just very good in the classroom. I was, like I said, very self-motivated and self-driven to just do good in whatever I'm doing. And so that's why I said it doesn't matter what you put in front of me. If I want to like be good at it, I'm going to just put in the time and effort to be one of the best at it. And that's so whether it's in the classroom, whether it was on a football field. I was a starting safety for my college team for both my junior and senior year. I think it's sophomore year as well. And so like I said, just whatever I'm in, I just pretty much was very self-disciplined, blocked out a lot of distractions. So you said the college parties, wasn't really going to a lot of those because I was just laser focused in on where I need to get done during that time.
Man, so I think of Kendrick Lamar's album where it's like Good Kid, Mad City. You have a lot of good kids that they get influenced by the surroundings. You move from Detroit to Texas. You got involved with sports. Talk about your family and the support they provided, because I feel as though they're really big in your life, from just how they moved you to what they were telling you to do. Like you just talked about how your dad was like, hey, start doing X, Y, Z, and you just listened. A lot of people, they listen to outside noise. They listen to people that they shouldn't be listening to, especially when they're young and they're easily influenced. So talk about the people you were listening to when you were younger.
That is probably one of the best questions I've had, because I think one thing that really shaped me a lot was the fact that when I moved, I was in a transition period. Well, we were all in that transition period of middle school. And so me growing up, I think I was very influenced by my friends. So like I loved drawing. I was an artist growing up. I used to love drawing because all my friends did that. Like if I was to be influenced by friends, it would have been back in Detroit. But since I moved, as they started to like develop and as they started like to define like their paths in life, I got surrounded with a whole new set of people, and I never like really gained a strong friend group until like 7th grade when I met my podcast co-host. And so during that time, I think my parents were who I looked to as my influencers a lot more, as opposed to like any particular friend group. And nice. So that me following their lead a little bit more kind of steered me in the right direction as I approached middle school and high school years, or middle school to junior high years. And that allowed me to gain a level of discipline to just do what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that just carried on from there, because me reflecting on it, I think that might have had a lot to do with it.
Man, discipline.
Yeah, hey, I'm super appreciative of you coming on here, because I think people look at, let's say, people like Jay-Z and Diddy, and they always tell you, well, look what's possible, right? And I feel like you're 25. I'm be honest, I used to dream of some of the things that you've done, really. And I'm a firm believer that, God has given me choice, and I made some decisions where I don't regret them. They're part of my story. But seeing people like you, I hope listeners understand, like, you've lived multiple lives, bro. You've lived the football athlete.
Yeah. Man.
Some people only have that, right? You've lived I worked a nice job. Some people, that's their claim to fame. Like, yo, I got a great job. You're living I'm an entrepreneur. You've lived I've gone to different states. So you're possible. There are people who are listening to this who they might be looking at this like, oh, his dad probably helped him. It's possible. You're talking about the discipline. You're talking about the hard work. It is definitely possible. You can do this whether you're 25. I'm listening to this now, and I guarantee you, I'm actually taking notes. There are things that you're saying that I'm learning from.
The thing about success is there aren't any age restrictions. There's no age minimum. There's no age maximum. The world is yours. Whatever you believe in, and you put the work behind, you put the grind behind to get the results. It can happen at any age. 18, 21, 25, 35, 45. I mean, we see stories about how some of the tech conglomerates, their CEOs, started in their late 30s, things like that. So when people may look at Marlon and say, damn, he's 25, he's doing this thing. It don't matter if you're younger or older. The point he is showing that it's possible. That's what you need to be focused on, the possibilities. It's not about what his demographic is, whether he's 25, he's a black male, he had his father around, all that stuff helps. But at the end of the day, Marlon still had to do the work. It wasn't a handout. He still had to do the work. And that's really the moral of any success story. You got to do the work.
No, that's 1,000% facts, man. Like, a lot of work was put in behind the scenes. Like I said, that's usually what you don't see on social media. But understand that with any level of success, it's going to come a little bit of sacrifice in some areas. Like I said, when I was in college, I wasn't the party guy. It's just straight up, like, that wasn't going to be my scene. I probably went to a handful throughout my 3.5 years while I was there. And every time I came out, people were like, "Hey, bro, we never see this dude out. What's up, bro?" So it was just once in a blue moon. Like, that just really wasn't my scene anyway, though. But like I said, there's at every level of success, there's going to take sacrifice, level of self-discipline to overcome your obstacles, and just a will to win in that particular area. And that's just with anything, whether it's in grades, in school, whether it's even your job that you work in, whether it's entrepreneurship, that just applies everywhere.
Yeah, so I really love your story. Your story isn't finished yet, but I want to make sure we talk about some things that you're an expert in, right? So, for example, the rental car business. There are people who are listening to this, and they're probably going to check out your social media. They're going to start Googling like how to get started, pros and cons of XYZ. So we have you on the podcast. I'm just curious, how can people get started in the rental car business?
So we have a couple of products and resources. To be honest, there's we have an ebook that I just put out. It's called 10 Ways to Automate Your Rental Car Business. If you go to rebusrentalcars.com/ebook, you'll be able to access that. And that'll just give you like 10 automation strategies that we've used. And it really also lays out the key foundations that we go through in order to pick the right market, as well as to add systems to your business at an early stage, because that really allows you to eliminate a lot of the headache that most rental car owners go through. And then we have a full-on course and program where we have a course and then we have a masterclass where in the masterclass, it's like a 4-week live masterclass where you can come on live with us on Zoom for 4 weeks straight, and we walk you through A to Z on how to get started in the rental car industry. So we start off at the very basics when it just comes to acquiring the car, different ways of different business models, different strategies. Then we start going into the listing the vehicle on like Turo and Hire Car. We talk about one of my favorite topics is the 5-star experience, because at least at the day of this recording, we've had over 150 rentals on Turo, and nobody has ever given us less than a 5-star review. And that's just because we value customer service, and that's part of our business model. And then, so we walk you through that. And then we talk really about, my favorite part is at the end, where we talk about managing and scaling the business to be able to operate any business, whether it's the rental car industry or whether it's whatever else whatever other entrepreneurial venture that you try to get into.
And you know what? I haven't seen your course yet, but the reason why I'm going to vouch for it is because you mentioned when you were just talking about it, you said something about systems. You also said eliminating headaches. And then you also talked about this 5-star experience, right? And in that, like me asking you that question, you could have gone all over the place, but you already had a system in place where you know where to tell people to go, you know what's included in this course, and it eliminated the headache of asking additional. I don't need to ask no additional questions. The man just gave you the answer right there. So if you're thinking about getting started in the rental car business, go back 30 seconds. The man gave you the answers right there. You know, I really like that.
If you want to tap into the course or masterclass, go to rebusrentalcars.com/course, and you'll be able to get either one of those, especially if we have a masterclass coming up. Depending on when you listen to it, we may or may not have one immediately, but it's usually going to be one that comes up every month or two.
Yeah, so the man talked about house hacking. He's talked about getting his expenses under control. He's also able to help you in terms of eliminating some of your expenses. So if you may, talk about eliminating, I would say, let's say some of the key expenses for a person. How can you help people do that?
So yeah, one thing that I've prided myself in on this journey to financial freedom, understand first of all, financial freedom, level 1 financial freedom, as we call it on the podcast, we consider that being able to pay for your base living expenses. So like whatever your current living lifestyle is like, being able to cover that. And so a strategy that we utilize is, instead of trying to increase your income, decrease your expenses, or really do both simultaneously. Like through your business, you increase your income, but now your financial freedom number is a lot smaller if you decrease the large expenses. So instead of me eliminating my cup of coffee or going out to eat every now and again with my friends or something, I'm gonna just attack the elephant in the room. So that's where house hacking comes into play. So I talked about house hacking already. The current house that I live in, it's a single family house that has a garage apartment on top of the garage. And so instead of me living in the main house with the 4 bedrooms, I live in a garage apartment. So behind me, this is pretty much my entire place where I reside at. Besides right here is where the bathroom is at. This is everything though. So I live right in this little space right here. And so I want people to really pay attention to that piece, because that is what accelerates people that are able to achieve financial freedom at an early time, like an early time frame. That's the things that people are not showing, is that this is the delayed gratification piece. Most people want to be able to live the lifestyle right away, along with going to the entrepreneurship venture. So I eliminated one of my biggest expenses, because the rent that this house gets pays for the mortgage and then some.
Yeah.
And that's just the main house. Once I move from this house, I'm gonna rent out this back unit right here. It's gonna pay me in cash flow, because the mortgage is paid for from the front unit. The back house is cash flow, and then I'll be able to buy another one, do the same thing all over again. So that's how you eliminate your housing. The second one that I'm very big on is I still drive the same 2007 Dodge Durango that I've had since high school. I don't have a car note. I don't even have a car note. So 3 of your biggest monthly expenses are your housing, your car, and food. If my biggest expense can just be food, I'm straight, because like I said, I'll be eating ramen and pizza rolls a lot of times.
Yeah.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie though, the way them gas prices looking, your gas might be your biggest expense soon. Driving that big old Durango, my brother.
Listen, my
Hey,
guy,
hey.
I cherish the times.
This on a lighter note. This on a lighter note. But those gas prices and that Durango do not go well together.
Now, if you ain't ever told a lie in your life, because that is making me consider actually getting another more economical vehicle, such as the cars that we rent out, because but I just need to find a way to get a car that I don't have to pay for, that I don't have to rent out, so I can drive every day.
Right.
And it will still not have a car note. Well, I can get that low price gas, because right now me filling up a tank is about $60. And I've seen it hit 70 before. I'm not trying to get back over there.
Wow. Wow. So one thing that might get a few raised eyebrows, I know you also have your opinions on multiple streams of income.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share that opinion? And I'm talking about the opinion where you feel like it might not be the best idea.
Definitely. So, matter of fact, I want to pull that up real quick, because I talked about it a little bit earlier with my personal journey with it, but a lot of people see on social media, like I said earlier, there are millions of different ways to go into in order to like start building wealth. And everybody wants to get into every single business venture right at this moment, because they just see everything as an opportunity. And so I tell this story now because I was no different. Back in I forget, what day was that? I think I still have it on my Twitter. Actually, let me go see if I can pull it up real quick. I put a tweet on Twitter back last year, and this just shows you the level of growth, because matter of fact, so this was September 18th of last year. I said, the mind is a crazy thing. I just envision myself with 9 streams of income within the next 2 years. It's time to get to work. So those 9 streams of income included rental properties, rental cars, tow trucks, trucking, t-shirt sales, course creations, a book, podcast sponsorships, of my app, and then a pest control business. I think it might have been So with that if I eliminated my job, because that would have been 10 with my job, 9 without the job. My plan back when I posted that was to start all of those businesses within the next 2 years. That's what most people go through when they first get into entrepreneurship, is that they see everything, like I said, as an opportunity. That was insane. Now I left that tweet up there to remind myself of how far I've come, but also to show people that, for one, growth is possible, and secondly, more importantly, is that you can actually have multiple streams of income within the same industry. We have 11 rental cars right now. Are those not multiple streams of income?
Yes, they are.
We have built digital products from the rental cars. That's in the same vicinity. That's in the same overarching business venture. So now, once you build a business and get a strong foundation and start scaling vertically, you're going to see that a tree, once it gets tall enough, it's going to start sprouting out trunks. Those trunks are your different streams that come from the same base root. And that's what we're starting to experience now that we focus in on one area. You don't see these people that are content creators or influencers. You don't see them starting a whole bunch of different businesses. You see them focusing in on one thing, and now they become an expert and an authority in that space. Now they can teach it to other people because they have gone through all of the growing pains. They've experienced a whole bunch of different things within their business, and now they can forewarn you about what's to come. But you can't get to that point if you try to learn from all of them at the same time and start all 10 of what everybody's been talking about. Just focus in on that one instead of being multiple streams focused, be single stream focused, and let that create multiple streams within that same industry.
Oh, be single stream focused and let that create multiple streams. That's a bar. I might get in the booth tonight and put that on a track. That's a bar.
Hey, man. Look, I think this has been a great interview, a great session, great talk. But I was curious if you could give a one-liner. It could be like one word, but these are just some topics that have come up. A lot of people are talking about it. So I'm going to give you a topic, and I want to get the first thing that comes to mind, right? So cryptocurrency.
But invest in knowledge first.
Okay. Tesla.
Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful.
Okay.
Everybody, you're going to see. I don't want to get into it.
Okay. Woman.
Hold on.
I like that. Kids.
Really hold on.
Really hold on.
Okay. And then student loan debt.
You said student loan, like say again.
Student loan debt.
Why did you go? It's the first question.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I was just curious because
I was going to say hold on for that as well. In the sense that no, the interest rates are low. The interest rates are relatively low compared to like consumer debt. So that's why I said hold on for that as well.
Yeah, so I would get into a whole conversation on like, why did you go to school in the first place? Because a lot of different degrees may be more of a waste of time rather than you actually needing to go. It's just something that your parents said was a good idea, and so you just follow through what they said. Like they were telling you you'll be the first person in our family to go to college and get a degree. So that's more of your reason for going rather than the degree that you were going to get from there. So that's why I said that particular answer, as opposed to like how to handle it at this moment.
Nice. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on. Where can the people listen to it? Where can people find your podcast? And then where can they find some of the products that you have to help them with financial freedom?
Most definitely. So if you want to just follow me personally, you can check me out on Instagram as my main platform. Also on TikTok. TikTok really grew for me this past year. Both of them are, well, I guess TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram are all at Deuce Walls. So that's DEUCEWALLS. And so that's where you can just see all about like what we do within the rental car business. And you can learn a lot of free information just from my platform on Instagram. Like I teach the reels that I do, the tweets that I put out, all that is really just free education. So you can learn a lot just from that alone. And then if you want to tap in further, like I mentioned earlier, the ebook and the course, the masterclass, all of those are products that you can also take advantage of. If you want to learn about the podcast, the shirt I'm wearing, Money Monopolizers, we've been running that podcast for 2 years now, have over 100, and I guess the thing by the time it's released, probably like 109 episodes that we have released.
Nice.
And we're still going strong. Like we're really buckling down on that particular podcast. If you want to learn anything about financial freedom, our journey to financial freedom, our different guests and how they've built generational wealth for themselves through their different business ventures or investing. That's what that podcast is for. We started it because me and my podcast co-hosts were having conversations all the time, every day, about how to achieve wealth, how to invest in real estate. And we knew that nobody else in our circle, like the people that we grew up with through high school, nobody else was privy to that same information. And so our goal is to impact the people who look like us, especially that grew up in similar situations that may just not have been afforded the opportunity to know about how to build wealth outside of a 9-to-5. So that's the Money Monopolizers Podcast. You can just follow us on on Instagram at Money Monopolizers. So MONEYMONOPOLIZERS. And then we also have a podcast. You can follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or check us out on YouTube primarily.
Nice. Good stuff, man. Hey, this has been episode 198. You can catch more episodes if you go to ccsmackpodcast.com. You can also find our merchandise on there, as well as the latest podcast episodes. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're liking, make sure you're rating. You can find us on Apple Podcast platform. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us anywhere that you find your podcast. This is your boy
YouTube,
Toby. You can
YouTube.
Oh yeah, our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
This is going to be up on YouTube. You can find me at Long Live TOB. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, not on TikTok, but all the other stuff I'm on there. Where can they find you?
Yep, and I am at Josh D Lifestyle on Twitter and Instagram.
Nice.
Yep. And don't forget to follow the podcast page, SCC Smack Podcast, on Twitter and Instagram as well.
I want to say one more thing. I think I speak for both of us, because I heard y'all say this earlier. Everybody that listens to the podcast, that's just brand new listeners, can y'all start at the latest episodes and backtrack the other and start at the very beginning?
Right.
Because everybody want to go to episode 1.
Right.
We weren't doing nothing. Like, start in backwards order for that. Yeah,
there you go.
Very much appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, I appreciate anybody who gets to listen to the podcast, but definitely, like Marlon said, if you start from episode 1, you might not make it to the last episode.
Exactly, man. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I feel you on that, man. Oh, man. Well, hey, look, we've had a great time with my guy, Marlon. Thanks for joining the show. This has been episode 198 of Corporate Coke and Smack. And as always, make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend about Corporate Coke and Smack. And everybody be safe, man.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.